Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video takes place in 2024, week 4, January 22nd to January 28th, and we are starting on some dash work. So what we're doing right now is we are marking where the tabs need to be installed onto the dash, and we are also trimming down the width of the dash because it's too thick. It's rubbing on the outside. The corner is a little too square, so we need to round it off a little bit more to make it so that it's not hitting, you know, the main dash part. So we're just doing a little bit of trimming and some figuring out here. Alright, now that the dash piece is fitting in there a little bit better, I'm going to mark on the top side where I need to weld a couple of pieces there as well, because I need some tabs to sit in the bottom, and then there's going to be some screws that go up through the top pieces. And those are the pieces that I'm going to use. When I had the dash cut out, I cut out a few extra pieces so that I knew I was going to need to add some tabs on there. And the reason why I didn't just have the tabs as part of the dash is I knew that the original piece, the tabs were kind of recessed a little bit, so that's why I did it this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the welder out, and we're going to weld the tabs on and just do some test fitting along the way. Alright, so what happens is I tack this tab on, and then I notice that the dash plate has actually bent because I guess too much heat and just where it is on the dash, like there's not a lot of space between the tab and where the gauges go. So I just go quickly grab a clamp and try and clamp it down and straighten it out a little bit. But yeah, so it did bend, which is not great, but such is life. Alright, so with all three of those tabs tacked, we're just gonna, put the dash in the car loosely. I know this is a terrible camera angle, and I'm sorry about that. But those tabs fit, so we are going to start working on these upper tabs that'll have some holes drilled in them to go into the dash pad to hold everything solid and in there. So I'm just holding the piece and trying just to get a tack between the dash and this piece, and it just doesn't work. All it does is just melt all the metal away, and it sucks, and having a terrible time with it. Actually, I guess that one went kind of okay. But yeah, I have a... Oh yeah, it already fell off. Like, I just have a bitch of a time getting this going. It really sucks. I'm getting really frustrated. So I decided, okay, well, I just blew a bunch of that metal away, so I'll add a little bit of filler just to build it up a little bit, and then maybe that'll help. Let me just get a tack between these two. It doesn't help for shit, and I'm burning through my finger, so I'm trying to hold it with the clamp, and just not having a good time. I am really frustrated at this. Just as I finally get it tacked, add a little bit more weld, and oh, I got everything held on there. Okay, so that worked. So I can just kind of bend it as needed, and hopefully it'll hold. But there we go, more heat, and the piece falls off, and I am just fucking choked at this point in time. I'm throwing my filler rod, like I am just so pissed off at this. So I'm like, okay, screw that one. I'll try and go to the second one. Second one, same thing, not tacking for shit. So I'm just going to try a different way, set the dash up a specific way, get it held up so that I can, use some filler while I'm tacking it. But yeah, I'm so fucking annoyed at this point in time as I'm going through this. Like, I'm just not having a good time with this. Finally get it held. And nope. Now I got magnets on both sides. My filler rod is bent to high hell, and we at least get a tack on it. I'm fine with it. It's just like whatever. So go and quickly throw that in the car, make sure it's what I want. Or nope, maybe I lied. Maybe I just throw the second tab on there. But now I can at least use a clamp on the first tab to hold it at the same angle, and kind of pinch it down. Pinch the dash down onto it. But yeah, this one was easy enough. It's on there, good enough. And all in all, it fit just fine. So now I'm just going to fully weld those tabs now that everything is fitting. now we're gonna clean off where that first tab was. Just there was a bunch of extra filler there, so kind of grind that down, get it back down to the metal, and then we'll weld a new tab on there. Alright, now that all that welding's done, we can do a little bit of cleanup here. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of putting it loosely into place. I am putting some marks on those new tabs at the top because I can cut them down, and I'm also putting some marks where I can drill out the holes for where I'm going to eventually put some screws through into the dash pad. So I do have plans to redo this dash panel, so I don't really care all that much if these holes are perfect or if the welds are perfect. I know for a fact I'm coming back in here later, so I'm just doing this quickly. I want to, get the car on the road, get it shaken out, getting shaken down, and then I can come back and redo this stuff later and do it a little bit nicer. Alright, so now that those holes are drilled and in the correct spots, what I'm going to do is scuff down the face of this, kind of clean it up, degrease it, and then I'm going to spray paint it black because I want it a dark color. I didn't want, the aluminum finish. The original was like black and gray, so I'm going with a, not necessarily stock color, but something a little bit more stealthy-ish, I guess. So before I get to painting this, I'm going to cover up this rim. I don't want to get any overspray on it. It's a super expensive rim. I don't want to have to clean it off later. And I'm also going to put some paper down on the bench, just that way I'm not painting the bench again. Alright, with that first coat on, we are going to move over onto doing some brake fitting work because, well, why not? You gotta wait for the paint to dry, so let's get something done. So we'll quickly jack the car up, throw a jack stand under the car, and then we will take this front wheel off. Alright, now that the front wheel is off, I have this 1/8 inch NPT to -3 AN90 that I'm going to put on. But in order to put that on, I have to take off both fittings from the line lock. So I need to take the line out, and then I need to take the fitting out of the line lock, and then the fitting will go on. Before I install the fitting though, I use some Permatex thread locker that is high temperature and compatible with brake fluid. I don't want the brake fluid to eat away whatever sealer I use. So I made sure to get one that is compatible with that. The instructions are knead the tube very well, cut the tip off, and then, apply it, and away you go. With that tightened down to the appropriate amount, just kind of angled it down because that's where I need it. And then I'm going to apply the same thread sealer to the top fitting, even though I don't necessarily think it's entirely needed because it's got that inverted flare on it. But hey, I'll do it. It's not going to hurt anything. And then I can reinstall the hard line, and then I can install the brake line from the caliper. And if I recall correctly, I might check the lock to lock, but I might not. No, I didn't. Just right back to painting on the dash. Second coat here. And through the magic of time, a quick third coat. Alright, so we are back on the car, or on the driver's side wheel well, and we're going to start wiring up this line lock. So what I'm going to do is zip tie the line lock wire down to the front, and then it'll run along the frame rail over to the line lock. I will weld on a couple of zip tie tabs just to hold it up later, but for right now I can just kind of loosely hold it in place. And of course, as with all of our devices, we're going to throw a Deutsch connector on there. And just like that, our line lock is wired on the car side. I do still have to finish some wiring on the inside of the car to get it going, but yeah, that should work as soon as I get the inside parts done. So we're just going to go ahead, throw the tire back on, get it back on the wheel cribs, and drop it down. Alright, the dash is dry, the finish on the paint is not great, but I don't care, it's good enough. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting all the gauges back in, trying to make sure I get them in places where I think they're going to be usable. I want to be able to see them while I'm driving, you know, like oil pressure and temperature and boost and air-fuel ratio and stuff like that. So just making sure I put them in places that I think they're useful to me. So I ran into an issue with one of the rings that holds the gauges on where it's super tight and it doesn't screw on very nicely. The color itself is very different than all of the rest of them, so I'm not sure how this got past QA, but here we are. So I'm just doing a little modifications. I'm kind of sanding the end of it down and then cleaning up the threads a little bit just to make it a little bit nicer. And it ends up being okay at best, but it's still not great. This is just one of the things you got to deal with on custom cars, is not everything is always right or perfect, so you got to kind of fix it and make it work. All right, with all of the gauges back in and the fuel sender rehooked up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on these dash lights. So I've been kind of putting this off for a while. I don't know why, but these are the stock. This is the stock plastic piece that holds the lights that came in the car. So the top light was fasten belts, and then it was parking brake light, and then shift light, and then check oil, if I recall correctly. So what I'm going to use this for is the fasten belts light is going to be like the something catastrophically has failed, buckle up, you're in for a goddamn ride light. The next light, which is I believe the park brake light, is going to be the park brake light. So I'm going to have my handbrake attached to that light. So in theory, when you pull the handbrake up, it should light up. The shift light is going to be a shift light that'll be controlled through the Holley Dominator. So when I hit a certain RPM, the shift light will come on, and then the check oil light, it's a yellow light, so that's just going to be a warning light. So in the Holley software, I can control like if my oil pressure goes down to a certain level, it's just kind of warning, and then if it's too low, it's the fasten seat belt lights will come on. So I had to use the drum sander, kind of sand the corner of the plastic back a bit on the top and the bottom so it clears the gauges. And now I'm just working on I need to drill a couple of holes just to hold it onto the front, so that's why I was just marking out there is a couple of the holes. So I'm going to go ahead, drill those out, and we'll get these fastened on. So I'm very specifically using a socket head cap screw, and that's because the old dash, it was just plastic, but they had like these fake socket head cap screws on it. So this is just kind of to pay homage to that. And I figure while I've got all the vents out, I might as well give them a bit of a cleaning. Alright, so dash is back together. So what I'm doing now is, in order to get the actual dash itself out, is I need to drop the column. So I'm just undoing all of the electrical connectors. But I think I kind of half-ass it, and I don't pull all of the... I don't drop the column down the full way. I just loosen it enough, and I'm able to sneak the dash out past the steering wheel and the column. So what I'm doing is I need to build some ducting and have the defrost hoses go to the stock defrost piece that's attached to the dash. So I'm just trying to figure out the routing for that and those kind of logistical things. Now that I got the dash out of the car, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that stock defroster piece that attaches to the dash, pull it off of the dash, and I'm going to figure out where I can put some new 3D printed vents that I made. and where I can attach it onto there just to make it all hopefully work. Yeah, so on the bottom of this, I have a block off plate. That's where the stock heater box would have attached to this defroster piece, but I don't have any of that anymore, so I built that plate. So I'm just kind of loosely drawing on here where I want these to go and getting a general dimension, which ends up being 2 inches by 3 inches for the base. And so off camera, I go and I design those. So what we can do in the meantime is get back to exhaust work. So I'm not really gonna talk too much more in this video because I'm just doing exhaust work. But what I am doing here is I'm dropping the diff so that I can get that exhaust pipe out. I don't know if you remember in one of the last exhaust videos, but I tried getting that pipe out every which way and it was just jammed up there. So the only way to get it out is to actually, drop the diff, which I'm okay with that. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, so we can modify that by lopping off that end. I don't need that end anymore. I will weld to this if needed. And yeah, so I'm just going to keep on fabbing out the exhaust. Alright, so what I'm actually doing now is I'm drilling a hole in the frame rail so I can put an exhaust hanger there because, I need to make it so that the exhaust doesn't, rattle around and move. So we're going to drill that out, tap it out. I think I use a 1/4 inch bolt, might be 5/16, I don't remember. But yeah, we're going to drill that out, we're going to tap it out, and then we're going to kind of get the exhaust hanger up in there. So I'm just going to quickly mark on the hanger where I can cut it, because I don't need all of that length. I just need a little bit to go to the pipe. So it was kind of at this moment I thought to myself, I shouldn't weld the pipe to the hanger yet. What I should do is I should weld the front pipe from the header back to the muffler, because if there's any distortion or any twisting or bending during that welding, what I want to be able to do is I still want to be able to modify that back pipe and get it where I need it to. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just going to take off this front pipe. I'm going to weld that all the way around. And what I really should have done and learned from my mistakes is I should have marked the bottom of this. I didn't mark the bottom of this pipe. So after I get it all welded, I'm not 100% sure where the bottom's supposed to be. Oops. But yeah, so we're going to pull this out and weld it all up. All right. Well, with this pipe getting fully welded, that is all the time that we have for today. So, as always, if you have stuck around this long, I would like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.